Hello ladies, gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new world build video. And in this one, we're gonna go over what I think is right now the most popular and probably the strongest PvE build in the game. Mainly focusing around catacombs, but also focusing around other raids and even mutated expeditions and things like that. So, the start of the show here is going to be Nimble Coat paired with Inferno paired with the Blood Drinker. So this combination is gonna give you basically infinite amount of sustain. It's gonna allow you to rotate your spell cooldowns extremely fast thanks to the Nimble Coat's highly refreshing perk, and it's gonna allow you to deal a lot of damage with your Blunderbuss because of the passive of the Inferno, basically giving you 50% bonus damage on the second weapon. So the rotation of the spells is gonna be something as simple as using your Fire Staff stuff and then using your BB, and your BB is going to be super strong. I'll go more in depth as to what perks you want to have in just a moment, but this is the start of the show. These three artifact combos is what you want to go for. Alternatively, you can substitute your Nimble Coat with attuned leather pants, and this will also work really well. So the reason why I use Nimble Coat is it pairs extremely well with refreshment. As you can see, the refreshment here on the earring basically gives me cooldowns faster 8.9%, and this is also 8%. So these two stack really well together, and the refreshment you can only get on earring. So that's why I run these two. But if you run attuned leather pants for a difference, what happens is you will then just be using a lot more BB. So you will be aim locking with a BB, and you'll be using a lot more BB, not so much weaving in as many spells with your Fire Staff as before. So that is basically the idea behind this build, and at the moment it is, I think, the safest, but also the build that provides insane amount of damage. And before we go into it, you may think, wait, but you lose damage because you're using the Blood Drinker. That is true. However, in the catacombs, you kill stuff and you get those points that you then spend in order to get even stronger. So the damage you actually lose, you end up not feeling at all. And you can do triple DPS comps without a healer and be perfectly fine all the way throughout, and even clear 5-6 bosses only with the DPS, and you can only do this if you use Blood Drinker. Now, if you're wondering where you get Inferno, you get it from M1 or above Forge, I believe. If you're wondering where you get Blood Drinker, you get it from the M1 or above Starstone. And if you're wondering when you're gonna get Nimble Cloak, I believe this is a PvP track reward. I already had it on the account, so I could be wrong on this one, but I'm pretty sure it's a PvP track reward. Now that we have this out of the way, my set consists of 5 overcharged pieces. Let's go over this. Overcharge set gives us an ability, well, when we're hitting an enemy within 5 meters or killing an enemy, we get a stack that has a 5-second cooldown. Each stack increases your base damage by 5%, so we can go up to 25% bonus damage and like better resistance, right? But you also are inflicted with rend per stack, so we take more damage. However, getting hit removes all the stacks, so we're back to 0. Basically, if you're playing perfectly, you want to have 5 overcharge and you will be dealing a ridiculous amount of damage. If you make mistake, you go back to 0. It's fine, it's still decent. As you can see here, max overcharge stacks are increased by 5 if you have 5 pieces. Now you may be wondering how you get these, and it's actually very simple. You just do catacomb runs. If you don't know how to do catacomb runs, you go into activities, you click on the catacombs, and you queue up. You can do it with premates, you can solo queue, it doesn't matter, and you'll then be using these mythic crowns. Depending on how many bosses you kill in your dungeons, you'll be getting these, and these are then used in order to do the Gamba, which is not really a Gamba because you have double fix perk anyways, and you can get yourself these pieces. And I'll tell you which ones are the best and which ones you want to look forward to. So you're going to be getting 4 of these on the Armour, and then you're going to be getting 1 of these on either the Amulet or Earring. I heavily recommend you to get the Earring because the ring slot will be covered, and the Amulet, you want to have multiple protection Amulet, so the Earring is your best choice. So for overcharge pieces, Earring, and 4 on the Armour is by far the best thing you can go to. Alright, let's go over what is considered great and what is considered not so great as the bonus perk on these armor pieces. So over here we have quote-unquote a bis roll, because we get a slash conditioning as the bonus roll. Again, hardcore parkour is fixed, sacrificial empowerment is fixed, divine can be changed, right? Obviously, you don't want to run Divine. You want to run probably either Health or Enchanted Ward. But I don't want to spend money right now because Divine is perfectly fine. It's automatic. If you want to spend money, you can make it a little bit stronger. You could also have one Kinley Fortified on this build if you wanted to, but it's really not needed. Regardless, this one landed on Slash Conditioning is perfect. If it lands on Strike Conditioning is perfect. If it lands on Thrust Conditioning, it's also perfect. And then every other conditioning is right behind that. And after that, you have perks like this, Critical Retribution, which are very bad, so I will be replacing this hat. Then you have perks like Abyssal Conditioning, which is slightly less useful, still useful though. And then you have perks here like Prolonged Favor, which could be great for some builds, even on this one. So this one is technically alright, but maybe a conditioning would be a little bit better. If you land on something like this, you could in theory do a lot more runs and just keep rolling on the hat in order to replace the Critical Retribution with something better of your choice. When it comes to Earring, I was lucky enough to land on a complete full bis. Maybe not so much for the Catacombs, because you don't necessarily run it with a tank. However, if we did run it with a tank, this would be a complete bis, because you'll drop on Beloved, and that is extremely good. Because, again, you deal 8% more damage to taunted foes, and again, if you have a tank, any sort of expeditions, this is perfect. It has Refreshment, which is exactly what you want, and the Refreshing Recovery is already fixed onto there as it is. And as you can see, this build has one skill in it, and that is the Empowering Meteor Shower skill. This will allow us to get Empower basically for 5 seconds. It's a really good, very cheap perk as well, and you want to make sure you put this in. I would suggest in the Earring, but you can also put it in any other, probably either Amulet or something else, right? So that is the perk you absolutely want. And then speaking about other perks you want for mainly getting your BB to deal really good damage, it's gonna be Enchanted. You wanna have 5 stacks of Enchanted. Now, this build is a mix and match of my PvP build, my Crescent Wave build. So this one has Rogue and Vicious in it, which is not perfect. You could have either Rogue and Enchanted, or you can have Enchanted and Skilled Enchantment, which is gonna allow your abilities to deal bonus damage. Those are the perks you consider in your offensive slots. So now, let's talk about how do you get a really good Blunderbuss to pair it with a Fire Staff. Every time you're doing a chest run, you should do it with a Blunderbuss equipped in order to potentially land on a close quarters infix. I personally don't have that, so I went with the very easy to get option, which includes me having double offensive slot, a gem slot, and 2 decent perks. In this case, we have Disdained Infliction, Arboreal Attunement, so you could go with the double attunement, that would be fine. Attunement Infliction, I guess it's fine. Anytime it's 2 alright perks, you're already in the golden until you eventually drop a close quarters infix Blunderbuss. So in this case, I was happy with this. I only pushed it to 775. I am probably not pushing this to 800 again, because this is not BIS, but this is allowing me to clear 5, 6, 4 bosses in Catacombs with no problem. And then Inferno, obviously, is already fixed as it is. So in this Inferno, in theory, what I should change is this Vicious, and I should change it for either Rogue or Skilled Enchantment. I'm leaving the Kinley Empowered on this. Again, I don't want to spend money. This is going to work on both weapons. It's fine. On the Amulet, I have Multi-Protection Amulet without a gem slot. It is what it is. It's fine. I would be changing Vicious with Enchanted, and a Rogue, I would leave it, or I would have Skilled Enchantment on it. And on my Blood Drinker, I would have Enchanted, and instead of Leeching, I would have a Skilled Enchantment. However, I don't want to spend this money, and Leeching is honestly fine for now, and I don't change it. But if I wanted a full bis, that is what I would do. And this pretty much covers everything gear related, everything perk related. Just think about it this way. Offensive slots, you want Enchanted, you want 5 of those. Then you want either Rogue or Skilled Enchantment, as many as you can fill. On Armor, all of your defensive slots, you want to have either Enchanted Ward or Well-Being. If you got that, you are chilling, and this build is gonna carry you through every endgame PvE activity you can think of. So now, let's go ahead and talk about the weapon masteries. Fire Staff is extremely easy to do. However, there is one thing I could change here, and I think that is to grab the grid here. So I would potentially get rid of the catch and put it over here in the grid. Totally not needed, but you could do it in order to prevent the staggers. And yeah, it allows you to basically, in Catacombs, just cast Meteor on top of you. It will heal you, and you will be greeted, so it won't get cancelled. It's a very minuscule change. Everything else is pretty much fixed here. You don't really want to change too much, yeah, this is just gonna be better. So I would honestly just stick with this as it is. Consider maybe getting rid of this and putting it over here in the Fiery Determination. Everything else, I don't think you want to be changing too much. When it comes to BB, you really have two options. One of them is this, where you're playing the net shot. This is going to allow you to do your auto E, auto distance. And if you get, for example, yeah, you're going to open on the boss, you might click the auto Q, auto E, right? And then if you want to get out of it, you boom, and then you swap back to Fire Staff, you use your spells, whatever, and then you go back to BB and you use your full combos again, because you have so much refreshing that you can do that. Right, so keep that in mind. Again, that's gonna be, let's wait 3 seconds, we're gonna do it again. So for example, you're gonna open on a boss. Let's imagine this kill needs a boss on a distance. You're gonna maybe do Meteor to get your Empower Cap, then you're gonna auto Q, auto F, and then you're gonna ult for a distance. And then you can do a few Fire Staff hits, and then you can go back to your BB combos. But alternatively, what you can also take when it comes to BB is you can get rid of the net shot and grab the claw shot. That is also fine, that also works. Some people prefer to play it. I personally prefer to play net shot. Everything else is pretty much perfect. You don't really change anything else here, so I think this is what you're gonna run, and it's gonna be perfect and it's gonna work. Now let's very quickly talk about the stat distribution for this build. I personally play 350 strength because of the Inferno passive, right? It scales of strength, and then we add some points into intelligence because, as you can see, Blunderbuss also scales of intelligence. That's our main damage source. We also get plus 3% damage to elemental damage, and everything else we put into con. You could argue going no con and just pump the intelligence. I think that would also work, but having a little bit of con to survive, like the, let's say, the hard problems is probably worth it. And then lastly, let's talk about consumables. I personally just pop honing stones and food buff, which by the way, I literally just ran out of. So let's go ahead and buy a food buff together in just a moment. Roasted rabbit with seasoned vegetables is gonna be your food of choice. It's gonna give you 48 con. So you only do this if you want to have a little bit of con. If not, you're gonna be using the Steam Abaya Serpe. This is gonna give you just intelligence if you wanna play 5 con. I personally do roasted rabbits with seasoned veggies alongside the honing stone. I don't think you need to be potting any sort of ward, any sort of coating pots. I think this is just not worth it for catacombs. But for any other sort of dungeons, do consider using any sort of coatings as well, depending on what kind of dungeon you're doing. Another thing I also use is I use the energizing hearty meal, I use the desert sunrise, I use the food buff, I use the honing stone, and then we blast through all sorts of PvE content for about 1 hour. And I think this basically covers this entire build guide. I don't think there's anything else to add. I hope you guys will find great use of it if you do decide to build it. I think it's great fun. And a couple of tips that I would also give you is in PvE, aim locking with BB is extremely OP. I personally have it on my middle mouse button. So you just aim lock on the boss and you just auto Q, auto F, and then get away, right? And then you just do your Fire Staff rotation and you go back to BB. Another thing you can consider is BB has a reload time, right? So if I'm hitting, now it's gonna start reloading. I'm hitting, now it's gonna start reloading. But what you can do instead is you can hit. Now we swap to Fire Staff, we do auto Q, and then we swap back and we don't need to reload. Fire Staff, auto E, and now we don't need to reload. Fire Staff, auto Meteor, we don't need to reload, right? So once you get more familiar with the combos, your combos are gonna start looking something like this. You're gonna auto Q, auto F, swap to Fire Staff. You're gonna auto Q, back to this, auto ult, auto boom. You're gonna swap back to this, use a spell, auto. Yeah, you're gonna go back to this, you're gonna do this. You're gonna go back to BB, auto F. Yeah, you're gonna go back to this, you're gonna do your spell, back to this, you're gonna auto. So you basically will never wait for the BB reload animation. So once you reach that point, you've basically perfected this build, and that is all there is to it. I hope this was helpful, and if it was, make sure you let me know in the comments, and if you make this build, let me know how it goes for you. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to add. Potentially, the gem slots, I just go either opals or onyxes, but like, everybody knows this. Slot your gem slots, couple of onyxes, couple of opals. I even have a malachite here. It really doesn't matter. Just don't leave it empty. It's gonna give you a little bit of extra defense to work with. That's about it from me. Have a good one. I'll catch you again soon, and bye-bye. See you soon with another video. Like and subscribe. No, I'm just kidding.